Hi everyone, Katie Cooke here, and I am so excited to introduce you to another one of my friends who gave me the honor and the privilege of having a difficult but also very hopeful and educational conversation with me about race, racism, growing up Black in America, what being Black in America is like now. She is an amazing friend of mine that I'll be totally honest, we've really only interacted with on social media. We work together, but we work opposite shifts. I rarely see her in person, but we've had the opportunity to have very good conversations back and forth on Instagram, and it just made me realize that she has so much more to say and so much more that I want to hear. And so I invited her to have another one of those conversations that hopefully everyone is having with their own friends, their own people in their lives about kind of this political, cultural climate that we are in right now that is causing so much pain and so many people. And I think our whiteness, for those of you who are white, is being put on the forefront right now, and we're having to ask ourselves some very difficult questions. And sometimes those questions are answers we don't have, and we have to ask them of other people. And so I hope that you have people in your life like my friend Maya who can help guide you and answer some of those tough questions. And I hope that our conversation that we have here right now will actually inspire you to have your own conversations. And so with that, I am so excited to introduce you to my friend Maya Paige Cooke.
Well, the first thing that I really wanted to start off with is something is just like total honesty is that I don't actually know you very well. Like I know that we work together, I know what you post on social media, but this is really one of the first conversations, like long conversations we've had. And so
Yeah,
it's
it
that
like face to
and face
way.
to face. Yeah, exactly. And so I preface it by saying that, like, we've had conversations similar to this just over Instagram and stuff. And so that's one of the reasons why I felt so comfortable reaching out to you. But I also want to kind of just like start with like a clean slate almost. And I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself and your upbringing a little bit, and what you study, what you like, and just kind of introduce us to Maya Paige Cooke.
Yeah, of course. So, I had a wonderful upbringing. I was born in Martinsville, Virginia. We moved to Christiansburg. We moved up to Pennsylvania for 2 years, and then we finally moved here to Roanoke. And I've been here since I was like 9 years old, so like 15, 16 years or something like that. Um, I was very fortunate. My parents worked really hard to make sure me and my older brother had everything that we needed in order to succeed. They made sure we had the right education. We were in a pretty well-off neighborhood, so I never really had any. I was never forced to have the traditional, I guess, experience, you'll call it, that's like illuminated in the media of like the Black experience, because I was mainly in a predominantly white area for, if not all of my life, a majority of it. So I never really had a brush with, racism from a Black perspective up until I got to, I want to say high school, and I made my very first Black friend. So it wasn't until I really met her and we started addressing things like, oh, what was your experience with colorism? Like, how'd you grow up knowing this? How'd you grow up hearing this? That, like, I finally understood that, I wasn't sort of the black sheep, no pun intended, because for all of my life, I've known white friends. I've had white friends. Like, I never really got to talk about race because nobody else experienced it the way that I did. So I didn't think that I necessarily had a voice to say anything because nobody would get it. So that kind of, led up into a lot of issues, I guess, psychologically, like being the only Black person in a group of friends. Like, I didn't feel like I was pretty enough. Nobody was after like the Black girl, things like that, because whiteness was held to such a high standard. And I thought because I didn't fit that, I wasn't, I wasn't good enough in a sense. So it really became beneficial having that one person who sort of related to my experience, and we could talk about issues. And I finally realized that, okay, I'm not just like making this up. There are things that are being said to me at times that aren't okay. And it took me a while to acknowledge that. But now that I do, it's opened like a whole new world for me, because it's like, obviously I have Black family members, but when we get together, it's not about race. We don't talk about race. We're family. So like those conversations never really popped up during my family gatherings. So it was just very interesting finally understanding that there was a different way that was being Black in, you know, this community and like in the country, pretty much, that is unique to Black people. And sometimes it takes getting to know another Black individual to understand that that's something that I'm going to experience.
So what do you think is like, what is your earliest memory, I guess, of knowing you were Black? Like waking up and knowing that you were Black and you were different than everyone else around you?
Oh, I was in second grade and I was about to move from, I think I was in Christiansburg to Pennsylvania, and everybody knew I was moving. And I had this one kid tell me that, I'm glad you're moving because I don't like you. And it was such a, you know, a jarring thing, because I was like, I've never had like a bad experience with this kid in like my time being here. Where is this coming from? So like obviously it brought my mood down, but I had like a recall of him telling me beforehand that he wasn't allowed to hang out with me. And after a while, I was sort of like, okay, is this like because I'm different? Because I already knew like the color of my skin didn't match everybody else's in the class. So it kind of dawned on me, especially after recognizing certain conversations that my mom and my dad would have in regards to race, that like, oh, is he not allowed to hang out with me because I'm Black? Like, is that something that he's not allowed to do? Because it was just such a jarring experience that sort of pulled me into the fact that, you know, in this predominantly white classroom, I was different.
How acutely aware are you that you're Black? Or is it ever that thing of just like, I'm just Black and I don't think about it?
I wish that it wasn't as reoccurring of a thought as it is, especially now with the current state of, you know, the country and like the recent reigniting of Black Lives Matter movement because of George Floyd. It's become pretty much an everyday thing, especially when I have to go out in public, like to the grocery store, to go to Marshall's, to like pick up random knickknacks. Like it's what's supposed to be at times a fun outing for me is overshadowed by the thought of, oh, okay, this person's looking at me. Do they not like me because I'm Black and they think I'm a part of this movement? Which, granted, of course I am, because how could I not be? But it's taken such a different narrative for people who don't understand what exactly Black Lives Matter is fighting for, to where it's automatic, you know, just waves of hostility upon just looking at somebody. So it's definitely become something that has, you know, increased, like an awareness of mine that has increased since recently. But I'd say that it's pretty much always been something that I've been attuned to, especially like hearing things like, you know, oh, you're so articulate. Part of me is like, oh, is it because like I'm Black and you didn't think I, you know, could hold a conversation with a person? Or is it just because like, I don't know, you don't talk to many intelligent people on a regular basis? So it's like those things, those like small comments that you don't think would cause would have such an impact on you, just immediately throw you back to being Black in America and like prejudices and other instances that are so exhausting, to say the least. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm acutely aware of on a day-to-day basis.
So I guess then growing up, you've mentioned already that you lived and grew up in such a predominantly white culture. Aside from your family, like what are your early memories of Black representation in your life, whether it was like in your life personally or in like you know, movies and in the maybe the entertainment culture or whatever? What was your experience with that like?
Yeah, I think growing up, I wasn't as, you know, aware of race and things like that, because even though it was brought up by my parents here and there, it was never something that stuck with me. But it took me, you know, growing up and realizing why I like That's So Raven so much, or why I always got excited when The Proud Family came on, because I wasn't aware that I wasn't seeing myself portrayed in the media at all. But, you know, internally, it's something that I was like, oh my God, like she looks like me. I can't wait to watch the show, because in a sense, it becomes more relatable to me. But I think for the longest time, I was completely oblivious to representation, because of the fact that whiteness was so pushed forward, like pushed to the forefront, that I thought it was normal. So why should I have a problem with not seeing myself? I'm not the norm. So it was very like, the second I realized that Black representation was so important was probably, I want to say, as late as like middle school, because I was just in such a predominantly white area. I had mainly white friends. So like me seeing them represented was like, oh, okay, I'm being represented too. But it was like it was this really weird delusion that I had where, you know, seeing Black women represented in media or like in toys and dolls wasn't that big of a deal to me, because I wasn't used to seeing it. But now I'm realizing how damaging that is for young Black girls to not see themselves like walking down, you know, the doll aisle in Target or Walmart. Like all you see are representations of white girls, and you grab the white doll because you don't see yourself. And everybody else has this doll. So I want to have this doll too because it's popular. And it's just something that growing up kind of sits with you, how, especially with me, how I was so deterred from grabbing the Black doll because I wasn't seeing the Black doll. Nobody else had the Black doll. I wanted to be like everybody else. So I was, in a sense, not necessarily rejecting my Blackness, but a part of me still, you know, kind of takes it that way, because I wanted to be normal. I wanted to have what every other girl had, and what every other girl had was the white doll with blonde hair. So that's what I gravitated toward. I remember my mom had gotten me my first Black Barbie doll. It was a present. I think it was a birthday present or something of that nature. And the second I opened it, I immediately didn't want it, because of the sheer fact that I wasn't seeing it in commercials. I wasn't seeing my friend in the hands of my friends. Like, why would I want the doll that nobody else wants? So that, in that moment, upset me to the point of tears, because I didn't understand why my mom would get me this ugly doll, because it wasn't what was deemed beautiful. So I had a very hard time just accepting images of myself at such a young age, because a part of me was so in tune to whiteness being desirable. I desired whiteness, especially in the form of like toys and things that I could live vicariously through, because of the sheer fact that my race wasn't wanted. So it really it's so damaging to young Black girls, like other, you know, women of color, things like that, not seeing yourself represented in mainstream media, to where you don't even like yourself, or you don't like seeing images of yourself because nobody else wants to see that image.
So now I guess for you growing up, because you did grow up in a predominantly white society, you know, educated by white people, did you have teachers of color, or what was it like learning about people of color from the white perspective?
So I can count on one hand how many Black teachers I had throughout, you know, from elementary school to high school. It was two. And they weren't even in, you know, your core curriculum classes. And then on top of that, you know, learning in history classes from white teachers, nothing against them by any means, but it definitely, you know, shifts the focus to a more dominantly white narrative, to where, you know, I dread hearing about the Civil War. I dread hearing about the Civil Rights Movement because I know in my heart that there's more to it than what the history books that they give us in those classes are saying. There's more to it than what they're choosing to pull out as, like fun facts about the Civil War and things like that. And it was also an interesting experience for me. I remember it was senior year of high school, and I had this one teacher for modern world history, I can't remember the name of the history class, but I remember it because this teacher, once we got to the Civil War section, for some reason he felt the need to mention, now, Black people, the slaves, were actually sold by other slaves. Let's not forget that. Me being the only Black person in the class, direct eye contact. So a part of me was like, are you telling me this? Because I already know. Because unfortunately, I have to go out and do my own research when it comes to topics of this nature. Because things like that, and honestly, that was the first time that I had ever heard that statement in any of my history classes, as well. Like, I had to actively go look up, different details about the transatlantic slave trade and the Middle Passage and things like that, because I knew in my heart there were things that were being left out because of the way that, America has shifted the narrative to focus on things that they find important. So and granted, like me being senior in high school, I was very shy. I was very timid. I said nothing. But my internal reaction was like, really? This is really something that you feel the need to say at me? You're not looking at anybody else. Made that statement at me. And then going on nothing happened. I keep using the word damaging during this conversation, but that's the most accurate term that I can use to be able to, I guess, explain how it felt to be the only one in that environment. Like, things are directed at you. People say things that they, I guess, feel like hold no weight, but it's crushing to be the only individual of color in a room and have something that's, in a sense, like very, what's the word I'm looking for? Inconsiderate, as far as, the topics that you choose to direct your attention to us are. And a lot of them have been in regards, especially with me and like other friends that I've talked to, they've been in regards to the slave trade. They've been in regards to the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, things like that. We just get asked these inconsiderate questions, and that just goes into this idea that Black people are supposed to educate white people on the things that Black people do and why Black people feel a certain way and why we take things this way and why we take things that way. It's not the job of the Black person to explain racism. It's not the job of the Black person to tell you why we react a certain way when we hear certain things or why we do certain things within our own community.
So for you personally, what is the Black woman experience been like for you in the workplace and when you're thinking about what careers you wanted to go into?
I'm semi fresh out of college. I've been out for like a year now, so I haven't had too many job experiences. But going into it, I thought it was going to be a much different experience than it has been for me. You read up on certain, I guess, workplace etiquette, and a lot of it has to do with hair. A lot of it has to do with, the clothing that you wear, your face. Like, do you wear makeup? How much makeup do you wear? Like, how are you styling your hair, kind of thing. So when I went into my interview for this job, actually, I sat trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to style my hair so that it looks presentable? And that thought took me to my straightener, because internally I still believe straight hair is professional, curly hair is unruly. Things like that, where just the interview is such a nerve-wracking process, because it's like, oh, are they going to say something about my hair? Like, are they going to say something about the colors that I have on, the way that I dress? Like, should I not be wearing these earrings? Does it make me look ghetto? Like, things like that, you know, not many other people have to worry about, are at the forefront of my mind, and I'm sure like the majority of Black individuals' minds when they go in for an interview. So I've been very fortunate as far as my work experience is concerned. There are moments where I sort of second guess certain articles of clothing that I wear. I have this one T-shirt, and it's my favorite T-shirt, and I got it from some like bootleg Instagram site, and it took like 2 months for it to come in, but I waited for it. And it's this white T-shirt, and the graphic is of a Black girl on it. And the first time I went to wear it, I had to go to work, and I was like, oh, is somebody gonna say something about this? Like, is this gonna be unprofessional? So I, built up the courage. I put the shirt on. I was like, you know what? If anybody says anything, I have my rebuttal. I'm ready. Like, you're wearing your little, Twilight, whatever have you shirt. I'm gonna wear my Black girl, because it's not even anything related to mainstream media. So miss me, I'm wearing this. And I did wear it, and it was fine. Like, nobody said anything about it.
You never had to use that rebuttal.
I never had to use the rebuttal, and you know what? I'm thankful for it, because I actually like Twilight. So I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna look like a hypocrite either. This is wonderful. I'm concerned right now. So yeah, it was one of those things where after I forced myself to be comfortable, and I think that's where a lot of people of color have to get to that point of just being comfortable. And if you're in a workspace where you feel like you can't wear your natural hair, you can't wear your favorite T-shirt, you can't wear like anything that you love, like you can't be comfortable in your skin, you shouldn't be working there. And that's the problem on them. That's a problem with that system. And you need to find, granted, it's easier said than done, you need to find somewhere that's going to accept you for who you are. And I'm lucky enough to have that right now. But not many people do. And it sucks to think that there's a girl like me out there sitting in a chair somewhere straightening her hair because she can't wear her natural curls, because she and everybody else don't think it's good enough.
And I hopefully, along with that challenge, I hope that more people of color will give white people an opportunity to break our own stereotypes about maybe not liking that kind of that kind of haircut, or those kind of, statement T-shirts or whatever, and like you did, you had to work up the courage to wear it. And from the white perspective is, I'm glad you did, because the fact that no one in our building said anything about it, I hope then makes you feel more comfortable that, not all white people are that way, that stereotypical way when it comes to our relationship with Black people. We can meet each other in the middle, like give us opportunities to prove to you that we love you just the way you are, and that you don't have to hide yourself and what you like, or you don't have to make yourself more white to fit in with us. And it makes me proud of the place that we work, that wasn't a big deal, because I don't know what I would have done if I'd heard that was a big deal. I don't know.
If it became a big deal, I would not be working there, honestly, because there are just some things that are, you just can't, come to common ground. There's no compromise there, because if you're going to tell me that I can't look the way that I look, then you're just not going to look at me, period. And I'm going to find somewhere else to work. But thankfully that wasn't the case. And I'm so grateful for just like, the people that are within the station, and how, just how nice, how understanding, the fact that a lot of them want to hear what you're going through, like what's going on in your life, and are genuinely, interested in hearing your story and learning about you, is very refreshing as far as a workplace goes, because a lot of people don't get that.
So there you have it. That is just part one of my amazing conversation with Maya Paige Cooke. When we were first having the conversation, it lasted over 3 hours. And so as you can tell, that is just a small snippet that you just heard there. And part two is definitely going to be just as phenomenal. Stay tuned for that. That's the one where we're going to get into really all things being Black in America right now. We're going to talk about Black Lives Matter. We're going to talk about the N-word. And we're also going to talk about the media and how important it is to have representation in the media, and kind of what are some of the books and movies and TV shows that you can watch that might accurately portray Black people and kind of give yourself an entertaining way of educating yourself, because there is just so much that we still have to learn. And so with all of that, I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you watch the next one. Stay tuned.